So since we have this great panel, wanted to launch a couple of questions, and please, if anyone feels compelled, raise your hands and participate. So, Tini, you were talking a little bit around, well, you all touched upon the area of data connectivity and, you know, profiling people in a better fashion. Valuable data sources really can be quite disparate. Can you provide any ideas on great ways to incentivize how siloed data owners within organizations can share more? So disparate data, you know, sitting in different places across the organization. How do we find a framework around making this, you know, work?
Son. Yeah, I think so. We're actually running this with a number of our clients, and it's true. A lot of teams and people, you want to own your data. You don't want to sort of release it. I think what we've done is we sort of believe in our philosophy around data is access to data is actually more important than ownership. So having the ability to create that value exchange between different providers is the most important part. So how you can take data from whether it's sales or media, but cross those systems together to actually get that full view across the board. Not in a duplicative way, but how we can actually share to actually get that access so we can piece together that unified view of consumers rather than one party necessarily owning that view.
You want to add any more flavor to the response?
I mean, I would just add that, you know, I think, you know, there's obviously, for someone asking for the data, there's obviously value to them, but whoever's sort of holding the data or sort of owning the data, they need to feel as though they're getting something back too, right? So figuring out, there's got to be value for both parties sometimes, because I've seen it in organizations where someone's got the data, like a handset database kind of thing, and they want to use it over here, and lots of people need to do lots of work on it, but they're not the ones that are benefiting. So there's got to be, you've got to make sure the other people feel as though they're getting some value back from that as well, somehow.
So tangibilize the benefit for both sides in a great way. Jason, you want to add anything?
Yeah, you know, the only thing I'd add is realistically within large organizations, you know, there is data governance, and there are data owners for real reasons, and then there's data owners for stupid reasons, like just being, you know, just wanting to protect your turf, and identifying which of those reasons exist and trying to come up with a collaborative task force within an organization to try to figure out how do you actually centralize a data asset like what we were talking about earlier in terms of this core customer data platform, something operational that multiple parts of the organization can use. It doesn't matter who owns it. The company owns it, right? The customers own their own data. But at the end of the day, having something that you don't have to recreate every time actually matters. It creates a lot of efficiency, and it creates a lot more value from your data that builds upon itself versus always having to figure out how do you link data together.
So in a way, corporate or company ownership is, you know, democratic in a way. So I think it ties back a little bit into culture, how you create that culture 100%. Within organizations.
Yep.
Okay, interesting. Any question from the floor? Okay, we'll move on to the next question. As we have seen, data can play, sorry for that, phone just died. As we have seen, data can play a role in the full end-to-end consumer marketing process. What would you say in your experience is the largest untapped area of opportunity for marketers in the full process? Paul, do you want to have a crack at that?
Sure. I mean, I sort of touched on this a little bit in my talk. I think one of the things we've sort of seeing in recent years, and still a long way to go, I guess, is actually just sort of the joining up of sort of panel type data with behavioral type data. So taking surveys and sort of leveraging that. So things like the Happy Harry segmentations that we've sort of seen. So joining up the market researchers of the world with sort of programmatic media's world. I mean, that's, you know, obviously I sort of work in programmatic media, so that's kind of important to us and an interesting kind of new connection. I think beyond that, I think with some of the more interesting areas that we're perhaps a little bit more untapped, that we've still got a long way to go, would be kind of in the creative area. So kind of joining up the sort of creative guys with the media guys. I think that's still kind of relatively untapped at the moment, figuring out how we join data across there and inform both processes a little bit more, right? So
it would seem like a great area of opportunity. We didn't actually see a lot of creative shops attending this year. That would be a great thing, you know, for the whole industry to activate a little bit more. I don't know, anyone else wants to add anything?
You know, one of the things I wanted to add is that I agree with Paul. I'd also say linking distinct customer segmentation to media data from a conversion perspective. So not every customer is created equal. I see a lot of reports from our clients that probably all of the agencies in this room provide that say, here's your CPA, here's your cost per acquisition, here's your performance. But at the end of the day, they're pockets of customers that are worth a lot more than other pockets of customers. And being able to figure out where do you double down, where do you pull back from, and de-aggregating the way that you look at performance is really simple, right? It's not the massive data science, but it's not really done. It's the exception, not the rule. So a lot of simple things, leaving a lot of money on the table.
I guess so. I mean, the idea and the opportunity is so compelling and so great that we tend to sometimes, overcomplicate things. So start with the brilliant basics in a sense. I think is good common sense. Tini, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I guess what I just wanted to add is, and I like your point, Jason, is the value of segmenting and also what we're segmenting on, right? So it's not just conversions or buying behavior, but Paul, to your point, it's also their attitudes, their emotion, because that then links to not only the context in which we're trying to talk to them, but the message and the content that we're delivering. So that synergy, I think, is something that we talk a lot about, but actually the practicalities of getting to that view and activating on it is still to be sort of seen.
Yeah.
And can I just make one other point? Earnings per share don't get affected by attitudes and fuzzy soft metrics, right? And I'm not speaking to your point, but like the last day I've been listening to a lot of the performance that's being reported, and every so often the question is, well, how many more widgets do we sell? Like when you get to the executive board of an organization, even CMO, they don't really care about anything other than sales in the grand scheme of things. So it's tying those proxies, right, to the value, and I don't see enough of that, right?
Yeah, and I perfectly, I think you're right in not just going, they love my brand, but actually being able to quantify that. So taking some of that emotional, taking creative, and actually tying it to a business growth. So how can we use data to link media directly to business value, I think is a big piece. And we kind of go out of, well, I got my click-through rates, I got my brand health awareness and so on, but actually say I shifted these many widgets or these many boxes off the shelf.
So I guess that connection is quite important, quite compelling, the idea of context and how messaging can be built from what really moves people, what motivates people. We're saying that, activating data, we're shifting the conversation more into activating people. There's people behind the activation that we want to do, and actually the messaging part is absolutely fundamental to create, communication that is valuable, that is personal, and that is adaptable to every situation. And in a way, I think all of this thinking that is happening right now in terms of contemporary thinking of product design from listening to people should be applied here as well. We should actually start listening to people carefully and then crafting, the message and the channel in a different way, so the production line is actually, in a way, shifted around. I don't know if you have any questions more from the floor? No? We're happy with this? Should we move on to the next panel? Thank you, everyone.